Welcome to the Whiskey Roundtable. We are your hosts.
Big G.
Karen Littleby.
Bourbon Bob. And we have a very special in-studio guest, Tom from Drew Estates Cigars.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad
Be
you're
part
here,
of this
bro.
international program of whiskey experts and connoisseurs.
And for the first time joining us on Zoom, we have a master distiller, Rob, hanging out in the Zoom call here. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We did put him on the.
He's
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
We're
Just want to
good.
make sure
We're good.
We are
that
good.
he's on the credits.
There he is, right there.
Hey!
I know, but I want to make sure he was on the credits.
This is our first recorded show, folks,
Yeah,
so please bear with us. Thank you very much. We're just trying something new to give you guys some excitement on the time when we're not here.
We're
So
quite the how do you call it?
Amateurs.
Amateur 20 guys.
That's why you've got experts like Zach, myself, and Rob joining us.
right.
That's right.
And Cheeseman's in the audience, so we can't forget Cheese. He's always
Can't
here
forget
with
the
us. So.
cheese, yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing here today? We are going to be
Oh, my
celebrating.
If you couldn't already tell.
Yes, this is a very special show. We're doing blackened cigars and bourbon and whiskeys. A little band Metallica is backing these, and Rob is the guy behind the distillation, and Drew Estates is behind the cigars. And so we got a little bit of both here. So let's turn this over to these two guys and see what they want to say.
We got the whole Blackened Cigars with Drew Estate and Blackened Whiskey was a true passion project collaboration with Rob, Jonathan Drew, our founder, and James from Metallica. And working with our master blender, Willie Herrera, these gentlemen knocked it out of the park with two fantastic blends, both the M81 and the S84. So it's been a real treat to have such a fantastic product, an incredible cigar, and then partnered and paired with some of Rob's incredible whiskey creations. And
Excellent.
can't be more happy about the product.
What we've tried today, I'm blown away by what the palate and the nose and everything else, which I've never all the years that I've been doing whiskeys and bourbons and scotches. But at the end of the day, the stuff that the different the walnuts and all the different things that you find in there that I'm so used to always drinking these bourbons, and you get this, you get that, you get this, but the ingredients, if you will, that are in those bottles are just a game changer. That's all I'll say.
Before you
Game
joined
changer.
us, Rob,
Yeah.
Tom was quizzing Greg on some of the flavor profiles within the Wes Henderson and the Rabbit Hole.
Yeah, I never
Yes,
knew
I was,
some of that stuff.
testing
Rhubarb
his-
and different things. Oh my
Testing
goodness.
his expert connoisseur skills with the nose, the palate, the finish, and
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive. He was very, very close to how you describe it.
Oh, excellent. Well, I think it's, whiskey is always subjective, right? Everybody's palate's a little bit different. Some people really love rye, and some people really love bourbon. Some people love scotch. Some people love heavily peated scotch. I think there's a whiskey for every kind of occasion and every mood. And I think, that's why I think it's good to collect whiskey, because you never know what you're going to like next. And I think the blending process is where, I think that's personal too. It's like you're trying to find something that you enjoy and hope that other people are going to enjoy it as well. And that's something I've been doing for 18 years now, making whiskey.
Wow.
Wow.
And excuse me, how this whole thing started is that we were at a cigar, our local cigar place, and we met Tom up there, and I was just kind of hearing out of the back, out of one of my ears, that he was talking about, blackened cigars and blackened whiskey, and right away it popped up as, wait a minute, you actually do a cigar and a whiskey that pair together perfectly. Hey, we do this little podcast. Can you join us? And so it's been a little bit of time going and getting together, but this I've been really excited to talk to you and find out what you wanted to put into a bottle and what they wanted to pair with in tobaccos, and see how these two worlds collided and came together with this great pairing. Because I've been sipping and doing drags on the cigars, and they both pair well together all the way around. So
They do.
with that little bit of history.
Yeah, and that was fortunate enough to be at our cigar annual trade show.
Right.
And in our booth, of course, we were featuring Blackened pretty heavy with the launch of Shade to Black. And I found myself with a little bit of downtime, which is rare. And I saw poor Rob sitting by himself looking lonely.
Aw, with all
I
your
had to go
friends, Rob.
sit down with him and just get to know him. And found out some amazing facts about Rob and his background. And of course, I think we all know how incredible he is at creating whiskeys and distilling and making these fabulous blends. So
Absolutely.
I want you guys to ask him all the expert questions.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
so and that's I cannot wait to get to that.
Oh, yeah.
So we were all excited about this show. And so, you know, Rob, we did our homework a little bit on you. And wow, what a career you have had. So I don't know that everybody else has been exposed to that. I hate to say that word because it always makes me think of something else. But
Some guy in a trench coat.
Yeah, I heard you had a band.
excuse me while I whip this out. No, I'm just kidding. Would you
It's
like?
kind of rated PG-13 and up.
Yeah,
Pretty much XXX, but anyway, keep going.
Do you want to like just give us a little background? How did you get involved in whiskey and cigars and all of that? Just so everybody can get up to speed here.
Well, I think, you know, I started drinking whiskey, you know, not really knowing what I was doing when I was in the Army. And I, you know, that was just purely for effect, not for, you know, any kind of real understanding of what I was actually drinking. I think, you know, I was generally drinking whiskey and Coke. And, you know, until I had a buddy of mine, an Army buddy of mine who had said, "Hey man, have you ever tried this whiskey and try it neat and actually like sit there and nose it and taste it," like someone who actually walked me through it. And that opened up a whole world for me. And I think, you know, that's the beauty about, you know, educating about whiskey is you never know what level people are coming in at. So I always try and give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't try and judge. I just try and help guide people along into, you know, a path where they can have some understanding and maybe come to another level of their whiskey journey. And, you know, so I think, you know, when I was drinking whiskey, that was kind of the you know, that, you know, we were watching like Wizard of Oz and it goes from black and white to color. I feel like it was that moment where I was like, oh, whiskey doesn't have to suck. You know, you can actually, you don't have to cover it up with Coke. You can, you know, with Coca-Cola, you can actually drink the whiskey and taste the elements and taste the layers in it. And that was something I think that was just started to become an enthusiast. And then, you know, years later, you know, after a storied career in the music industry and kind of full circle coming back around, I met the founder of Stranahan's Whiskey here in Colorado. It was the first distillery since the end of Prohibition here. And that's where I started distilling, started working on the bottling line 2006. And that was really where everything started for me. And I was working the night shift there for about 4 years straight, just, you know, distilling from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I'd bring.
Uh-oh.
We lost somebody.
Oh, we lost Rob.
We lost Rob.
Yeah, it keeps popping in and out there.
Okay,
okay.
you're back.
Hey,
You're
welcome
good.
back.
All right. There we go. That's a magic trick. I can disappear.
That's it.
Just like the whiskey.
Yeah, if there's so many whiskeys, I disappear too.
That's true.
So what I've heard from that is that you're a fast study when it comes to something you're passionate about.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's something that you know, if I love it, you know, I love, you know, I love motorcycles and rat rods and vintage cars. That's kind of my, you know, my passion. And I think that's where, you know, Hetfield and I hit it off when I first started working, when I took over as the master distiller and blender for Blackened Whiskey. You know, we hit it off over our mutual love of vintage cars and bikes and hunting and, you know, music. So it was really pretty extraordinary to, you know, one, to get to make the whiskey and to kind of expand on how I wanted to create. You know, I was working with musicians who are artists, and that's the way I approach making whiskey as an art form. You know, that's how I like to view it. It's my way of making art.
Love it.
That's awesome. And I just want to thank you for your service. And that's
Yeah,
when you
thank you.
mentioned that we
Thank you.
raised our glass. We have
Very kind. Thank you.
veterans in our family as
I
well.
was gonna say too, I didn't get a thank you.
Well, you
Hey,
didn't
I'm
tell.
retired from law enforcement. She shouldn't cut me any slack either, dog.
No, why should I? No. But it's funny, you know, your story into whiskey is a lot like I think some of our stories about, you know, we were at college and it was just to drink, to drink, to drink. And then you finally realize that there is flavor and there's a difference. And it's such a wide range of profiles that come into the mix.
Yeah, that Wizard of Oz analogy was actually 100% perfect. It was like you went from black and white to color. You discovered a whole new palette and a whole new range of everything. And like you said, educating people is half the fun of this hobby. And when you see them getting enjoyment out of something that you yourself put into a bottle is amazing. You know, I used to do the same thing with a distiller local here. And when you get to talk about the passion of putting it in the bottle, watching your labors go into it, it's really great to see somebody enjoying it.
Well, just walking into a place and seeing it on a back bar, you know, just, you know, and, you know, it might be a random bar that you walk into and there's your whiskey on the shelf. And I mean, there's just nothing more like humbling and, you know, and you're proud at the same time. You know, it's just the fact that I was able to take a hobby and turn it into a vocation is, you know, that's something I'm pretty blessed to experience. So I don't take it for granted at all.
All right. So what came first, the cigars or the whiskey?
Well, that's, you know, the chicken and the egg kind of story. I don't know. I mean, I think in, you know, ancient Egypt, they were distilling and who knows if they were smoking before that. No, the whiskey came first. You know, it's interesting because, you know, Hetfield doesn't drink but he's very supportive of how, you know, my process is, but he smokes cigars. The guy is just such a connoisseur of cigars. And during COVID, you know, he lives here in Colorado, you know, about an hour and a half away from where I live. And we were spending a lot of time on his back deck, smoking cigars and, you know, talking about life, talking about friends, family, our beliefs, what we, you know, are, you know, just connecting with his, he's got a kind of a fellowship group that he has. He has some buddies come over. We sit around a fire and we really connect. And it just occurred to me, I've known Jonathan for almost 15 years from my Stranahan's days. And I had the idea one day. I brought it up to James. I said, "What do you think about making a cigar?" I got my good friend Jonathan Drew makes cigars down in Nicaragua, and I'm sure you've tried some. And his, you know, at the time he had smoked the Liga Nines and the Papa Fritas. You know, Papa Fritas are one of his favorite before this, and he said, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." So, you know, I reached out to Jonathan, and we just started, you know, figuring out how we were going to do that. And they started sending us different varieties of cigars, and we were keeping journals, you know, on what we liked, what we didn't like. This is too spicy. This is chocolatey. This is, you know, and finding it, you know, and again, working with Willie Herrera to really fine tune that profile. And the cigar came later. You know, that was kind of a project born out of COVID. You know, being isolated, we're going to do something cool, and that's exactly what transpired.
Born out of fellowship, friendship, and another passion. And then teaming up with Jonathan Drew, I mean, you know, he's wild about being innovative and creating new things and changing the whole spectrum, like he did with the whole cigar industry. Kind of the rebirth of the industry is our motto. And I was just floored and blown away when I first heard that M81 was a project that was coming out. And I probably heard right when the packaging was all settled down and done and we're going to announce it. And I was like, this is going to be great. And then to follow up that with the S84, and that was the first cigar in the industry that we announced it and it was ready for shipment.
Wow.
As much as you want. Normally at trade show, they announce a new cigar and they take pre-orders and it ships hopefully in October, you know, 6-7 months later. But this is like, no, you can buy it right now. So we changed that up for everybody, and they weren't ready for that.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, we hit the ground running. That was pretty exciting at the PCA in Vegas, just to unveil that. And the booth was incredible. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any images of that, but they won Best in Show for the design of the booth, and it was all around blackened whiskey, blackened cigars. We even we had James Hetfield's 1938 cab over engine, the blackened truck, which is the ashtray. Right back
Have
here.
it on the table.
No, not that.
Oh,
ashtray.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we got the-
Ah,
This ashtray was for
okay,
folks who
okay.
Oh,
bought
that's
all in on.
awesome.
That's cool.
And those are the cab overs are one of those really
Yeah.
rare trucks that
Right.
either you like them or you hate them. They're so ugly, they're beautiful.
I love them. I thought things too much fun to drive.
The COEs are my favorites, and there's not many around here in Northeast Ohio because we have things like salt that eat them away.
Right.
Yeah.
And that ashtray that Rob just showed us was a gift for customers, store owners who purchased the whole line, 4 or 5 boxes deep of each size.
Nice.
4 sizes. And it was a gift to them. So there's only a few of them around out there. And
Yeah, they're pretty rare. We finally got a couple out to James, and that truck was pretty cool when we first got it. It was tan, and we painted it black. We did a bunch of work to it and put some barrels on the back of it, and it's got a souped up engine in it. So I've had that thing. I've driven it all over. I've driven it all over Florida, all over Kentucky, California. It's a blast to drive. It's a lot of fun.
Rob, was that a factory 4-door, or did you guys make it a 4-door?
It was factory, but oddly enough, it's a factory 3-door.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is weird because you got the 2 front doors, and then the passenger rear door opens, but the driver's side is just a solid sheet. There was never a door there. And my understanding, I think my understanding, they made it specifically for the railroad.
Okay.
And so it was for guys that are out long distance down the tracks, working on the out in the middle of nowhere. And I think that back seat was kind of like a cab bed, which is why it only had 1 door and not 2. So that's a cool truck.
yeah, it's a big truck too.
Yeah, oh yeah. Let's shift gears 1 second here. I want to get into a bottle here. Your first bottle of Blackened. What was your inspiration, and how did that come about? The first bottles of Blackened, because we could talk about the trucks and the cigars, but I like the juice. You did some really good stuff with this, and it's like I want to get the history of this stuff because the pairings are amazing, but you got some good product here. So how did you come up? How did this start?
Well, the original blend was created by Dave Pickerel, who's a legendary distiller, craft distiller. He was a former master distiller for Maker's Mark and Whistle Pig, and had his fingers in countless projects. Good friend of mine, and he was the original collaborator. He unfortunately passed away 3 months after they launched, but that original whiskey was a blend of bourbon and rye, cask finished in brandy casks. When I took over, I made some adjustments, really fine tuned the whiskey, which I know that's exactly what Dave would have done as well. I just fine tuned it to what I felt was the right proportions and the right amount of time cask finishing. And I'm a huge proponent. I love cask finishing because you can take a great whiskey, a great bourbon, and a great rye, and then you add this extra element to it by selecting a cask finished barrel. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with what cask finishing is, that's where you're taking a used barrel, generally of wine or brandy. It could be port. It could be, I've done it in Tempranillo. I've done it in cognac barrels. And you're letting it rest in those barrels and picking up the flavors of those tannins in the wood from the wine. And, just like anything, just like blending anything, you can overdo it. You can leave it in there too long and you're going to blow out the whole flavor profile and all you taste is the wine. So it's really a delicate dance on blending for one. If I've got 5 different components of whiskey from 5 different distilleries, you want to draw that palate in. You want to be able to layer flavor, that flavor profile in, bring it up to kind of like a peak, and then you want a nice long finish, and you want you want to let that finish just keep drawing out. And there's nothing like having a good finish on a whiskey that pairs well with a cigar, because you're breathing that whiskey in your mouth. Now you're drawing in that smoke, and you're letting that roll around with the vapors of the whiskey that are still kind of residing in there. You're getting another, that's almost like cask finishing, just cask finish. It's almost like cask finishing for your mouth, so to speak. You're doing that with the smoke and the whiskey. So, cask finishing, I've done it with Calvados casks. That's the rabbit hole. That was, Calvados. I've always wanted to do one. And that's, that's a particular apple brandy from France, a certain region, the Calvados region in France, just like Champagne is from the Champagne region. Otherwise it's just sparkling wine. And I could have gotten apple brandy from France, but I didn't want just apple brandy. I wanted Calvados. Like when you want something and you want something specific, you're going to fight for it. And, I was getting those casks in 2021 or 2022. And, anytime you're getting barrels from overseas, there is a huge unknown factor of how those things are going to show up, because they could be in a shipping container that was sitting on the top of the ship and the sun was baking it, and it might have just cooked what everything was in there. You never know what you're going to get. And you're just you're hoping that you're going to get the best. And we were very fortunate that the barrels were phenomenal. So, cask finishing, I think, is just an art form in itself of playing around with different flavors. And that's what we've always leaned into, with our brandy cask finish on the original. We also do a cask strength version of that. And then, our first masters of whiskey, we did a cask finish with the Willet barrels. And that was a lot of fun. We were playing around. I really thought that the Madeira was like a nice sweet kind of port wine that would go well with that high rye element of Willet. So I kind of jumped around there, but it was more just kind of explaining what a cask finish is. But going back to that the original batch, it was all about finishing in the brandy casks.
It's so funny the way, not funny, but it's while you were talking and bringing everything together and your hands were moving, it just reminded me of a conductor in an orchestra. and it kind of is, because the way you've got to, bring this up, bring that down, do all of it. It's so interesting how the music aspect just keeps coming back around.
Right. Sure.
To the whiskey part, just the way you were talking to me, at least. That's what I keep thinking of. It was interesting.
Well,
I think that comes back to that art form. It's just I'm pretty passionate about what I do, so I get pretty excited in the discovery and explanation of what the whiskey is, because it really is creating something special, and I love that. I love that part of it.
Hey, we're Italian. We talk with our hands all the time. So
our director of operations is Italian. She's Staten Island Italian, and every time we go out drinking, I got a bruise on my arm from how many times she's smacking me like,
Hey, that's maybe where my bruises come from. Yeah.
All right, so going right back to the first batch of Blackened when it first came out, and no offense in any way, shape, or form, like you said, it was I like following a new product when it comes out. The first bottle of Blackened I had was not my favorite, but it wasn't bad by any means. It was just one of those that I want to follow this and see how it develops. And it has developed quite well. And I was really pleased to find out that, those little tweaks and stuff that you did make it a lot better. 100%.
And that's always the goal. And I think, look, I agree with you. Like I tried it in the beginning, but everything, just like anything, anything can be fine-tuned and made better. And I think, hitting the ground running, with that initial batch, immediately when I tasted it, I was like, okay, here's what I had in mind.
Right.
And I think I see whiskey almost like a color palette in my head. Like I can already see like, oh, I'm going to adjust this way with this component, and I'm going to adjust this way with this component. I'm going to broaden this flavor profile, and we're going to draw this in over to this profile. And it just, what it takes is just sitting there, it's funny, like you were saying in the beginning, like, looking for an apprentice, but I do my best work when I'm by myself, concentrating, focusing, and nosing the whiskey. And it's almost like writing computer code, because you have to stay focused on where you started, where you're going to, and you can't lose your place,
right?
Because you kind of have to start all over again. And otherwise, so you have to, I keep really good notes about what I did, what worked, what didn't work. And, and when you're blending, if it didn't work, you got to start back again at the beginning, or at least know the foundation of where you're starting. Like, okay, these two components work. This is my base. I start here, and then I'll layer in everything in and around it. So I can always keep going back to that base, and until I find the next component. And I'm like, okay, that works. Now I got to balance that next component against that. And it is kind of like orchestrating, different components of an orchestra. It really feels that way.
Now, are you at the beginning when they're actually doing the mash bill and stuff? Are you creating mash bills for this stuff, or are you taking a generic mash bill and then doing the finishing and blending where you're at to the way you would actually get the product into the bottle?
Initially, it was blending other whiskeys that were already there. And the whole thing with that is, you want the best whiskeys, you want the right components to be able to blend together. Just like when you're making a fantastic meal, if you're making a steak rub, you want all those elements to accentuate that steak. And now we are working on our own mash bill. We've got, we're laying down whiskey that we've got that I helped create with our producer there in Columbus, Ohio. So we are on that path, and that just took us a little bit to get there.
That's awesome. I like to hear that, because the progress that you've made so far is awesome. And then when you guys actually start making your own juice and stuff, it's going to be even better, because you already know what you're going to be going, and now you're starting one step further and earlier. It just makes a whole big difference on the finishing, and I'm looking forward to trying some of those also. But we also have two of your components over here. We have the rabbit hole here, and what is the other one that we have? The
Wes Henderson
one.
Yeah, it's up there in the front.
What was your inspiration on some of these? You want to pick out one of those and talk about that one, or?
Yeah, I'll start with the one that you can see in the front there, the Wes Henderson. That one came before. Oh, nice. Well, that one came before the rabbit hole, and that was a 6-year-old Kentucky bourbon that I different. The blending together the 6-year-old bourbon. We did a white port finish, and that was just something that Wes Henderson and I felt would be a really good finish for that Kentucky bourbon. And it really just, it just brings a phenomenal layer to that, to an already great whiskey. We had a hell of a good time. It's interesting. Wes, he wasn't only just the co-founder of Angel's Envy. He was the county coroner for the county in Louisville. And so every time we were sitting there, nosing whiskey, he's got his radio right there. He's got to wait, he's on call, and we'd be sipping whiskey, like, oh, hold on. And then, they're calling in. He's got his police scanner there, expecting a call, and he had to take a couple of calls while we were there. So it was pretty interesting. Some of the stories, just talking with him, because he said, "Oh, you're a combat vet. You probably heard, your share." And he'll tell me a story about something that they came across, and it was just kind of kind of surreal what he does, as a first responder there in Kentucky. And we actually donated $40,000 of the proceeds. That's when they had the tornadoes that came through Kentucky that year and really created some devastation. And so we donated some of the proceeds to the first responders in Kentucky to be able to help support that and be able to support that community with Wes.
Let me ask you, why did you choose a white port? Because a white port is something that's really kind of off the wall. It's not really common, and that has become one of my favorite type of port wines. I love a good port wine because it is just so flavorful. But why a white? Because that's like a unicorn in the port world.
It is, and it was even more difficult to find barrels for that at the volume we needed. You can come up with any kind of crackpot idea and think, oh, this is going to be great. But then you got to follow through and you got to find the barrels and so we were like, oh, this idea is great. And then we found it was pretty difficult to get the white port, but I think that was exactly why, is because no one had done that before. And I think that's the point, is that, doing something that hasn't been done is always, I want to create those unicorns. I want to create those whiskeys that haven't been made. And I think that was really the idea of to go with the white port.
I think we call it, I think what you're talking about, Rob, is the tail wagging the dog.
Oh, why? Because you found the white
Certainly,
port, maybe
yeah.
you were one of the
Started from the tail to the front.
Yeah, and it is. I've never taken the easy path. That's that to me. It's just I like to stay interested. I like to do the unusual, and that will continue to always be that way. That was anytime I can find something that's unusual. I did a cask finish once with a hogshead, which was kind of a different size barrel of Scotch that had a heavily peated Scotch in it. And that barrel went to a gin distillery and they put gin in it and made an Old Tom gin. And then I got that barrel and I put a single malt whiskey when I was at Stranahan's into it. And I was like, look, I have no idea if this is going to taste good, because that's all a bunch of weird, unusual components already.
We called that a hairy buffalo back in my day.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, initially it wasn't good, but you got to know what doesn't work before you find out what does work, and you got to be willing to take some chances and take some risks. And that one was a risk that I knew could turn out terrible, and it did. But that's the fun part about doing what we do.
Right now, Rob, I'm gonna be interrupting you because I have air in my glass,
He's
and I'm gonna need
dry.
some. Yeah. I need some of that West. So yes, that one there, yes, because this one again, the one you're talking about, has become a new favorite, and that white port does come through on this so nicely.
I'm glad you enjoy it. That's we had a lot of fun putting it together, and I think it really just turned out phenomenal, because we're building it on a smaller scale when we're creating the initial blend, but at the end of the day, I've got to blend a couple hundred barrels together or more and I'm tasting it again and every component every step of the way to ensure that on a large scale it tastes just as phenomenal. So that's it was pretty fun to be able to have it turn out so well.
All right, now from a blender's aspect of this, how do you cleanse your palate while you're doing all this blending so you don't burn your palate out while you're doing this? I mean, because that is one of the big things that you have.
That's a great question, because after a while, even if you're sitting there for an hour or two, and you've tried whiskey after whiskey after whiskey, even with the things that I do, after a while you're just like, okay, I need to come back to this in the morning. I think it's right, but I need to come back to this in the morning. So what I'll do is I do a lot of nosing. Nosing is important. I'll keep like a jar of coffee beans in a mason jar in the next room, so I don't keep it in that room. And I'll go out and do a reset, nose the coffee, put close it back up, and come back in, and that helps me for a reset. I don't keep it around or open anywhere, where I'm nosing or blending. I drink a lot of water. I do a lot of my blending in the morning, and what I'll do is I'll brush my teeth without toothpaste, just kind of give a scrub. And then I'm always I always keep the palate fresh, so in between those nosings and tasting, I'm doing a little water rinse, and just pretty simple. And, I'll use, like unsalted crackers, just like some plain crackers, that'll help, for a kind of a palate cleanser a little bit too. But I keep it simple, and then, but for the nose, that one you do have to reset on occasion. I'll go back out there and nose that coffee beans and then come back in. And that generally does the trick for me.
And do you abstain from cigars like a day or two before also, because that will also affect your palate?
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to have that coating of smoke in your mouth. So I won't smoke. If I know I'm going to sit down with a serious blending session, and and I won't smoke probably for a week, before
Wow.
that.
Do you ever try soda water? Pellegrino?
I haven't, I just like, I just like, I just like a good filtered water. And that's for me, that does the trick.
Now, speaking of filtered water, when you get your barrels and you do your blending, are you using, are you proofing the stuff down to what you're going to put in the bottle? And that's where you're at, and you're using a good distilled water at that point in time, or do you have a good source? Are you distilling it yourself, or do you source that out also?
Yep, that's a good question. At Stranahan's, we used to bring in El Dorado Springs water from El Springs. That was something we just felt strongly about. And right now all of our production is in Columbus, Ohio, so we're using treated water. That when I say treated, it's charcoal filtered. You're getting any elements out of the water, and you can also use it's like a
Osmosis.
yeah, reverse osmosis. That one, I mean, for me, that's you're just cleaning out all those elements, so you have a nice clean water source.
Right. And I mean, I find that's really big too. I mean, the proof water is fantastic. I mean, it's almost as important as the juice that you put in the bottle.
Every ingredient is, you're dealing with, a lot of times it's only 4 ingredients. You're dealing with, if it's a bourbon, it's, it's corn, a little bit of rye, yeast, and water, and then 5 is the time in the barrel, so every one of those things, it matters. Every single one, your water source, if you have all these great ingredients and you're using, pond water, you're going to get pond water. That's just, so you want the best ingredients, especially if you think about distillation, you're distilling it down to its most rawest form. You're taking that ingredient that you started with, and you're going to break it down to its basic elements. And that's, so you've got to have the best ingredients to start with.
Nice.
Awesome.
So I have a quick question. So elevation, geographically wise, most of the bourbon is in Kentucky, which is flat ground. You're in Colorado, mountainous area. How do you think that affects the taste and just the distillation process of your products?
It's a great question. So when I was at Stranahan's, which was produced in Colorado, all the malt, it was about 100% of the malt barley was from Colorado. Then you had your local water, but we were also dealing with high desert here. So our barrel houses, we had to create a humid environment. So we kept a humidity of 70 degrees, 45% humidity in order to combat angel share. Now, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee already has a naturally humid climate, and you got those rick houses that have the different elevations. You've got the barrels that are going to age faster the warmer they are on the top of the rick house there. And that's right now all of our production is in Columbus, Ohio. That's where all of our barrels are stored. That's where all of our blending is taking place. So we have that humidity of Ohio that is helping one, combat that angel share. Yeah. And create that warm environment for the barrels to age a little faster.
Well, I've been sitting here noticing one thing. You haven't really sipped on anything while you're talking over here. I've
been talking.
What are you actually sampling over there? And if it's something that we have here on the table, would you walk us through a tasting and how you taste it, and let us learn from the master and how we should be tasting what you're tasting?
Yeah, so this is Colt 45 malt liquor.
No, you're not in Cleveland right now.
Yeah, I kind of thought that's what you were drinking.
I thought I saw money's 55th.
Hey, where's your paper bag?
You got himself a Colt 40.
No, I'm sipping on some of the original Blackened original. This is batch 143. So I'm just sipping on some of our 90 proof, and I actually threw it's pretty hot. Like I said, it's high desert here, and I'm in my cigar lounge off the back of the house here. I don't have air conditioning back here, so I threw an ice cube in there.
So you said something about batch 143. What is significant about batch 143 and the batch numbers?
So
I don't already know, but
yeah, this is something that I haven't really dove into yet. Another thing that really sets us apart is our black noise sonic enhancement process. And this is where we are, during cask finishing, while they're in those brandy casks, we are playing low frequency music to the barrels. Now, on a kind of a surface level, that sounds romantic. Okay, you're playing Metallica music to the barrels of whiskey, and in every batch we always play a different playlist. We're always playing a different Metallica playlist. But there is some science behind this, and this was something that I dove deep on. I worked directly with Meyer Sound, who is the sound company that creates that wall of sound for Metallica, and we created a proprietary low frequency device where, now when you're thinking low frequency, we're thinking bass tones, we're thinking a subwoofer. So anytime you're feeling, if you've ever been to a concert and you've walked in front of a stack of speakers and you feel that vibration in your chest, that movement, that's motion. You're creating motion. So what we're doing inside those barrels, with regular aging, when you char the inside of a barrel, that's going to create all those natural sugars and flavors and the tannins of the wood to create a caramelized band of sugar right there at that burn surface. So all that spirit's interacting with all that. It's picking up 100% of the color, and it's picking up about 50 to 60% of the flavor from the wood itself. So you're picking up all that flavor. When we're applying black noise sonic enhancement, you're creating this vibration. So you're getting this more interaction with the wood. You're getting a faster interaction. And here's where the science came in. So we tested this out. We discovered the frequency we wanted to use. And we took 3 barrels that were the same age, same batch of whiskey. And we took those barrels. We had 2 that we applied the sonic enhancement process to, and 1 barrel that we did not. And we aged them over the course of 60 days. We took samples every week. We sent them off to the lab. Now we're looking for 9 different flavor profile markers from the oak aroma panel. So the independent stave company who creates a lot of the whiskey barrels in our community have an in-depth book on what happens with the interaction with the barrel. And so those 9 different flavor profiles were all elevated in our black noise sonic enhanced barrels. That was proof to us that we were actually creating a difference with sound inside the barrel over the course of that 60 days. And so that's why we have a patent pending on that process. That's why we've trademarked the name Black Noise, and we are what I feel scratching the surface of something where I think we're taking old technology and traditional methods, and we're using new technology to create what we're calling an enhancement right now. I hope to, at some point in the future, with further research and development, to create to help advance and speed up aging with sound. And I've gone down the rabbit hole on this, and it really is pretty fascinating to me what you can do with sound. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those experiments out there where people have a tray and there's sand on the tray, and they play different frequencies and the sand forms different shapes. It really is an interaction that we're doing with the whiskey. And for me, I think it's a pretty extraordinary aspect of pioneering in a very traditional whiskey making world.
That is awesome and fantastic.
That is unbelievable.
I almost like to have a camera inside of one of them barrels and watching the whiskey jump.
Well,
I'm working on that. So I created a barrel at Stranahan's that had glass windows on either end.
Oh wow!
So you could put a light behind it, and you can see what the level of volume of whiskey going down, but the depth of color increasing. That's all angel share going out. Water molecules are smaller than alcohol, so they'll evaporate before the alcohol will. So you're going to get less volume but higher proof. Proof will go up in the barrel over time because you're losing your water. So there's always an element of water in whiskey. So you're gonna, once you start losing that water, that's why proof will go up over time.
Nice.
That is so awesome. That is something I never thought of before.
No.
And now my mind is just like going in all different directions as far as, you know, taking the same barrel, but playing different playlists to it, which I think is what you're saying you're doing basically, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And how it comes out differently in the different tastes. Like, what are you finding are those differences between the different playlists?
Well, we always start out with, oh, that box is so cool. I love that thing.
Isn't that cool?
This one? Is that this one?
So, you know, the different playlists, you think about it, you know, I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm going to do probably a close up here. Let's see, there's my camera. Right. So, you know, that's an actual sound wave right there. And, you know, with the word Blackened over it on the front of our bottle. That sound wave is the physical representation of the movement of sound, peaks and valleys of sound. And just a little Easter egg, this is an actual sound wave of James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica, singing the word Blackened, which is one of their songs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
So a little Easter egg in there, but those peaks and valleys represent the movement of sound. Those, so every song, every word, every element is going to be a little bit different. You know, so if you have more bass heavy songs, you might get more interaction with the barrel. You know, so I think, you know, people have asked a lot, you know, do you try any other music and other songs? But, you know, Metallica owns their discography, and we use primarily, blackened songs to enhance the whiskey with. But I'm always curious about what other music would have an effect over time. So, you know, at some point I'll be playing around with that just on my own, just to, for my own curiosity, just to see what actually happens in there. We get requests all the time for Taylor Swift, and I just can't get behind that. So
how about a little Barry White? What does that do?
Yeah, let's get it on.
Maybe some straight head or something. Maybe some straight head jazz. Drum solos, just drum solos.
Take it for the Italians here. What does the Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin twist do to that?
Give smooth jazz.
I think there's
there's another distillery down in Kentucky that also does the same thing with low wave, and their products are up and coming also, but I don't think they have got it to the level to where you have got it right now.
Well, I'll tell you, John Meyer of Meyer Sound is just an extraordinary genius when it comes to sound. He's been, if you look up Meyer Sound, they really are the pinnacle of the sound industry. They've worked with anybody from Lucasfilms to artists all over the world. And that, when you see a Metallica show live, that sound array is all Meyer Sound, and it was all specifically curated for Metallica. So they really know what they're doing. And I had a blast working with them to really fine tune our process.
And then each bottle of Blackened, it's got the batch number, and that refers to the playlist that people can, they find that on Spotify, right? Or
yeah, they can look it up on blackenedwhiskey.com. They can look up the Spotify playlist and actually populate the playlist that was used to sonically enhance the whiskey that you're currently enjoying. So it is a fun little kind of experience for the consumer, and if you're into Metallica, it's just a nice little a fun extra experience.
But I don't see that like on the Rabbit Hole or the Wes Henderson. Is it? You're still doing that? That's correct.
Well, we created our own playlist for those, so we don't have a batch number, but you can look up you can look it up. For example, Wes and I selected the playlist for it for those songs. Drew Colesbean and I did the same thing. Same with Kaveh Zamanian. We all selected our songs. And I mean, it's a lot of fun to like kind of go through that discography. I think probably one of the more fun projects that I've done with Blackened Whiskey was our Batch 100, celebrating our Batch 100. We released a Batch 100 box set that had a vinyl record, and the band had reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you select 12 songs, send them to Lars, who's the drummer, and he'll curate it down to 6 songs from your 12 songs, and we're going to release a 1 vinyl record box set of the whiskey." And I I sent him 12 songs, and he emailed me back, and he's like, I love every single song that you've picked so well, so much. We're releasing a 2 vinyl record box set, and it ended up being 2 vinyl records with the whiskey, and I was able to dedicate those each of those songs, explain why I selected those songs, who I dedicated them to, and why. And I did 3 deployments when I was in the Army, and I dedicated 2 of those songs to my brothers in arms. For one of our deployments, we listened to "And Justice for All" a lot while we were deployed in Somalia, and I think that was a big album for us. And then some of them were to my metalhead friends in high school, to my sister, to my family, and to Dave Pickerel. I dedicated one song to him because I felt that was really important to acknowledge his contribution to the original collaboration of the whiskey. And it was really extraordinary. It was so much fun. Those box sets, I don't think they're any out there anymore, but they were pretty highly sought after, and it was a blast to do.
Wow.
Well, you dropped a lot of knowledge on us right now. I was wondering if you could drop a little bit more on us about the way that you taste and nose a whiskey.
Oh yeah.
That's what I would like to. I would really like to know how you taste and nose, and where you pick things up at, and the way you do it, because we have our way of doing it, and we are not professionals by any means. We just know what we like. But I would like to know how a guy like you puts something in a bottle for so many to enjoy.
Well, and that's where it all starts. It starts about you enjoying it first, right? You know what you like and what you don't like. I always describe everyone's palate is really kind of based on their memories, where they grew up, what they were surrounded by, grandpa's garage, grass clippings, used motor oil, and cigar ash.
Familiar, ladies and gentlemen?
Hey, you need to come hang out with us because you fit right in.
Awesome. Well, and that's it. It's your experience, right? It's your palate. So, and so I just have really just leaned into the experiences I've grown up. I grew up in Southern Colorado in the agricultural community. A lot of agriculture around, horse tack and barn hay and the smell of rain on sagebrush. All these things have an element that stick with you. Your olfactory is tied to your memory. So you think of grandma's kitchen and baking bread, chocolate. My granny, she smoked cigarettes in the kitchen, so she always had a cigarette dangling while she was, cooking in the kitchen. So
in your eggs while she's stirring.
That's not pepper.
Like that. Oh my God.
Well, that's actually kind of nice.
So that's where I start from, is like, and I really call upon what I call my olfactory Rolodex. And that's probably dating me a little bit because, younger people out there are gonna be like, what the hell's a Rolodex? But, the Rolodex in my mind is, I knows everything. If I'm eating spaghetti at a restaurant, I'm going to nose the plate and I'm going to, taste it and kind of, because I'm filing away those smells. I'm filing away, you have to know what's good and what you like to kind of head in that direction, but you also have to know what you don't like and what smells terrible and what's bad. I've got an anecdote that I've told before about, my girlfriend had a skunk problem at her house for a while. And I was looking up, okay, well, how do you get rid of skunks? Well, you can go online and you can buy a spray bottle of coyote urine. Then you spray it around the yard and they're going to smell that. And the skunks are going to they're going to stay away because they think there's a predator in your yard. Well, as soon as that bottle showed up at their house, I'm like, I got to know what coyote urine smells like. Right. And it's like, so I'm untwisting the bottle and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to whiff it, just kind of like take the bottle and just kind of do a drive-by whiff on it. Well, my muscle memory of diving into a whiskey and keeping your nose and your lips slightly, your nose open, your lips slightly parted, and just drawing a big old whiff in. Well, my muscle memory kicked in, and I just drew in a big old whiff of coyote piss, and it is the most foul thing on the planet that I've ever smelled.
I thought you were just going to say to her, pull your pants up. But anyway.
I will tell you that I think that wilted the hair on my chest is what it did.
Is that why you don't have anything right here?
Oh, it just burned it. This was a beard, man. It just burned it right off.
He was Santa Claus before that.
But I will tell you, I know definitively what the most foul thing on the planet smells like, and then I can kind of just go up from there, right? So,
Oh God, that's awesome.
So that's not a desirable note in the whiskey.
You don't want coyote. Yeah, that's not a
Coyote piss is on the
taste you ever want to see come up. Yeah, you don't ever want to see that come up in a review on something you created. I'll tell you that. And that's but that's the beauty of it, is like well, everybody froze. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still there.
You're still here.
Okay. But the beauty of it is also knowing what you really do enjoy and what you like. And I think that's the important aspect.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we keep trying to reiterate is that your palate is your palate and you know what you like. What we necessarily like is not what you're going to be what you like, and it's all personal opinion.
You're not wrong.
Again, and that's half the fun of the hobby is sharing and learning what other people's palates are like. Is when you can pick out something and hand it to somebody and say, "Hey, I think you're going to like this based on what you like," and they're going, "Oh my God, yes," that is a great feeling.
And I think it really is. And it's leaning into giving people the tools of how they can understand how to explore the whiskey themselves. I'm not one to I call it leading the witness. I don't like to put, hey, here's this flavor profile. You're going to taste this. You're going to taste that. I don't do that. If I'm leading a room full of whiskey and we're all tasting, I ask people, like, what are you tasting? What are you tasting? What's your smell? What is it that you're nosing? I know what I taste. I know what I smell, but I'm not going to lead you with that, because as soon as I say it, you're going to say, oh, it does taste like that. Oh, it does taste like Christmas popcorn balls. It's all going to be relative to your own palate. So I like to encourage people by giving them that toolbox to encourage themselves to know that they are the expert of their own palate.
That's excellent. They just have excellent words. I like that. Absolutely. You're an expert of your own palate. Yeah. I like that.
Because everyone is different and everybody picks up something different. And it's, what you make it may not be what I get, but once you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I do. Like when you mentioned walnut on a couple.
I kept saying dry oak, that very dry, when, we were nosing it and you got that dry air. And I was thinking, like that's dry oak, and here it was walnut.
Yeah, because it kind of brings it down to more detail of what you're trying to figure out, and sometimes you just can't grab that.
Right, it's like when a cigar smokers will look at a flavor wheel, and it tells them what they might be tasting. But with customers and consumers I run into, when it's a new cigar or they're trying something new, I'll get them to take a pre-light draw, a cold draw before they put fire to it, just like they're smoking it, and then ask them, wait 3 seconds, now tell me what you taste. And they'll come back with, I know this flavor, and they think about it, and they might come up with molasses, cocoa, plum, raisin, leather, a few different things, earthiness, and that's when that customer's eyes light up, and the education light's going on, and their brains working, and they're thinking, they see how sensitive their palate is of picking up all those subtle notes. And it's like they're a born-again cigar smoker. They're ready to try more things, and they're really excited, and they have a great time, especially during the education classes I do for different customers. So it's a lot of things kind of go over there, and then you pair that with someone's favorite whiskey or a favorite blend that they like, and it just keeps building on their appreciation for both great whiskeys and good premium cigars.
Awesome. And
I couldn't agree more.
That brings me to my question, and Rob, how do you pair a cigar with the whiskeys? Is there, like, we have a couple different brands of the Blackened cigars here. How would you pair each one of these with the different Blackened whiskeys that you have?
Well, I think just like any kind of element, you know, bourbon tends to be a little sweeter in that profile. So I might go with something lighter that will accompany that, you know, so that the S84 goes great with the bourbon because you've got that lighter wrapper, you know, with the Connecticut shade, and I think that's what I like is, you know, when you're getting into that, like the triple Maduro of the M84. You know, you got that Nicaragua, Pennsylvania, you know, broadleaf, and then you know, and that you got all these rich Maduro chocolatey notes. That is, I'm going to lean into that. Might go good with a good earthy rye, you know. So I might lean into like the Rye the Lightning, you know, which I know you had planned on getting, but the rye that's a high rye, and I love a high rye. You know, I think a good high rye is I like something that might tickle my shins a little bit or give me a good kick in them. You know, because I want to know it's there, but with a good flavor profile, and that's how I'll pair. It's just kind of those different blends and different elements. You know, I think it's and a lot of it is you know, taking that sip of whiskey first. So your mouth has got all that nice warm coating of the whiskey, and then you're drawing the smoke in over that. That's where you're going to find that profile.
Right. And like with Blackened M81, you know, it's got that San Andreas Maduro wrapper on it. And we make other cigars that have that same wrapper leaf. But the contrast, because of the subtlety of what they did in the blend, it's like night and day. And I thought for sure that we were doing at Drew Estate, we were doing a little bit different fermentation process for the M81. And I finally talked to Willie. I said, hey, I'm going to ask you one nerdy tobacco question. And I said, Willie said, are we doing something different in fermentation for M81 than we are like the Undercrown 10th anniversary? It's the same wrapper leaf, but he goes, no, it's same process. But that difference in flavor comes from the priming on the plant. It could be this, you know, a foot apart. It could be 3 feet apart. But where that wrapper leaf grew on the plant is going to determine the strength of that.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be the same thing as some of the whiskeys. They're going to find those subtle differences, whereas someone who's just shooting it back isn't going to notice the difference between the Rabbit Hole and the West Henderson. But we're here. We're enjoying it like a cigar. We want the aroma, so we're going to smell that. We get the nose, and we're going to taste it. We're going to look at the finish. Think about all those things that went into it and try to figure out how the heck did Rob get, you know, the flavors that he did out of there, those unique things. And then we pair that with cigar, and you're like, how come I haven't done this before for almost in my life? And I think Bob's turned on to this Wes Henderson now. That's always going to buy for the rest of the life.
I'm infatuated with that. I mean, I'm a sucker.
He's going to snuggle with that bottle.
I'm a sucker for a port finish. I'm a sucker for a finished whiskey. I mean, I really do love the depth that the finishing adds to it like that.
It's the white port.
The white port is amazing. But what can we look forward to in the future? What do you have in the pike that's coming down that you can talk to us about?
Or maybe
so many secrets. I've got some fun stuff I've been working on. One I can talk about right now is a collaboration that's really near and dear to my heart. I just did a collaboration with 10th Mountain Whiskey out of Vail, Colorado. Actually, their distillery is in Gypsum, Colorado, but they've got tasting room in Vail. And when I was in the Army, I was with the 10th Mountain Division. So I was Mountain Tab, mountaineering. And 10th Mountain started here in Colorado. So that was up in Vail, and they are celebrating their 10-year anniversary this year. And so I went up there on 4th of July and did a single barrel selection of their rye, their bourbon, and their single malt. And they've got a special edition that's coming out in September.
Oh, yo.
freezing.
Oh, they were listening, so now.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, all right. While we have Rob on pause, Tom, you've been quiet. You know, I mean, Rob's been doing a lot of talking, and this is probably the quietest I've ever heard you. You want to talk about something? So
and
You're back.
You back?
there we go.
We missed you a little bit there.
Oh, hang on, Rob.
So I have a question for you,
Yeah.
Tom. How did you come up with the name of the cigars?
Like for the M81.
Yeah,
We're
like
talking-
where does that come up? Is that, to me, it sounds like almost like a firearm.
Well, I'm not involved in any of that at all. I'm just a lowly territory manager.
Yeah.
The M81 is a collaboration, but the M stands for Metallica, and 81 stands for 1981.
Okay,
When
Okay,
the band was formed.
nice.
okay.
S84 is
You back?
kind of a shade to black. It's
Rob, you back?
a tribute to the
Yeah, I'm here.
their sophomore
Sorry
album,
about that.
Ride the Lightning. And
Okay.
the song Fade to Black, play on words, shade to black.
Nice.
So I was just asking Tom where they come up with the names for the cigar, because
M81.
M81 sounds like a firearm caliber to me. No, so I was just curious
Yeah.
where that comes from.
Well, that was some sort of top secret that you were giving out that they cut you out on. So if you can't talk about it anymore, we understand.
Yeah, they just shut off my satellite because I started telling the secrets. You know, there's a,
Well, you know,
there's a Metallica satellite that I use, and
Rob, you and I know that they're always listening. They're always listening.
Very true.
always.
Isn't
Always.
someone
Very
always?
true.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to go around the table and ask Rob one more question, or do we want to keep going with this?
You know,
Yeah,
I want to just ask Rob if there's anything he wanted to say
Yeah.
that we haven't touched on, and you just want to tell everyone.
There is one thing, and we touched on it very, very briefly, and I think it's really important. And I think it will really help anybody out there who is on whatever level of path of enjoying whiskey, whether they're an enthusiast or a connoisseur or just getting started. A tool that I use that's invaluable in my work, besides the glass and the whiskey, is a whiskey flavor wheel. You know, they have the a beer flavor wheel. They've got it in the wine industry. They've got it even in the cheese industry. They've got it in the cigar industry. And what that does is you might be tasting something. You're like, you know, I like it, and I just can't put my finger on what exactly this flavor profile is. You can look at a whiskey flavor wheel, and there's dozens of different kinds out there. And you can look up, you're like, okay, well, let's break it down. All right, that's a vegetal flavor that I'm tasting. What is that vegetal flavor? Is it corn husk? Is it fresh cut hay? You know, it'll help you, and it'll be written out on so you can look, you've got your categories and your subcategories. So those categories might be earthy, vegetal, water, and those subcategories or descriptors underneath there lined up are going to be a whole variety that you might find in that under that flavor profile. So I found that you know, if you're feeling a little stumped on identifying what it is you like or what it is you dislike in a whiskey, a whiskey flavor wheel, which you can look them up on the internet, you can download it and print it out and have it right there in front of you when you're nosing and tasting a whiskey, and it really is invaluable on anybody's whiskey journey.
Do you use the color wheel also along with that? Does color make a difference for you also when you're choosing your whiskeys and how you're finishing them?
You know, I actually made my own whiskey flavor wheel when I was at Stranahan's based on my experiences in the industry, just for fun, you know, just to have a blast with it. And I was goofing around with it, and I color coded it just to kind of make things stand apart. But I'm more what I go more by the elements. I go more by mineral and earthy and water tones. Color doesn't really make a difference for me, other than just kind of differentiating where it might be on the wheel. Nice. You know, I made that wheel. I had some fun with it. Played around with different versions. You know, my you know, decade in the music business. You know, like you know, Lemmy Kilmister's Boot Heel. You know, from Motorhead, or it might be you know, I had a whole Hunter S. Thompson section, which was like, you know, nitroglycerin and, you know, and Gunsmoke and you know, and ditchweed, you know. So I had some fun with that, just playing around, but really it really is kind of kind of based on your own experience. So I think I follow more the elements, the elemental factors.
Well, I have certainly learned a hell of a lot tonight.
Amen, brother.
I have too. I
Amen.
do have another question. I
Amen.
have so many in my pocket right now.
Amen.
Are there
Yeah, ask away.
one more question? Are there certain grains that you think makes a better whiskey? Like a higher, I know we talked about you like the high rise. So is that what you think makes a better whiskey? Or, I mean, we were supposed to try last week an oat, I think.
100% oat whiskey.
100% oat whiskey, which we never did open.
Well, I know I'm excited for 100% oat because oat is a sweeter grain, but that's why I'm this is a really good question on your part. What is your preferred grains? I mean, what makes a whiskey for you based on a grain bill?
Well, I think, again, this always comes back to using the best ingredients. So, when you're dealing with like malt barley, for example, when they say 2-row pale malt barley or 4-row, 2-row is going to be better because the kernels, those husks are going to be bigger. They've got more space, more access to the sun. Whereas a 4-row, which is planted, you're going to have more quantity, but you're going to have probably less quality. That the grain is going to be smaller. You're going to have less fermentable starches to create fermentable sugars from. So you're going to get a little bit less flavor out of a 4-row than you would a 2-row. So it's always about the ingredients. I grew up in corn country, Olathe sweet corn, and a lot of the corn that is for human consumption are the top 2, 3, 4 ears of corn. Everything below that always ends up being silage for the cattle, so it's just going back to, what you were talking about, Tom, about those leaves, at the closer to the top where those leaves were extracted from that were used for that Maduro leaf, really makes all the difference. That's where your richer flavors are going to be in those leaves that got all the sun and all those nutrients, originally, over the ones that were lower and got less sun and less of that vibrancy. So it's always about the element of those ingredients first.
Hey, Rob, we're getting a sign over here. We're running a little bit long. We might lose that on the Zoom here. So
okay,
I would love to have you back on if you would be willing to do this, because I think we could talk to you for another 90 minutes and really still not scratch the surface on what you're all about and what's going on. I just want to take this time to thank you very much for coming out and taking the time with us, and keeping Tom as quiet as you have, because I don't think he's ever been that quiet.
Well, hopefully I've answered everyone's questions out there, and I know we've talked about the richness of the tobacco and that whole process. It was so much fun to be able to work with Jonathan Drew, with Willie Herrera, and my friendship with James, Hetfield is where that kind of all started. Our enjoyment of that fellowship and the cigars, and there's fellowship of whiskey, fellowship of cigars. You really can't go wrong with any of those. So I just really want to thank you for the hospitality and getting a chance to sit here and I'm a whiskey nerd first and foremost. So I could I could wax poetic about pretty much just about anything, as you've seen. So it was really enjoyable to answer the questions that you had and to get to spend some time imbibing a little whiskey and a little cigars with you.
Hey, and if you're ever in Cleveland, call us.
Come on in.
There's always room at the round table for you.
And I'll feed you.
It's interesting. I was born 90 miles away from Cleveland. I was born in Ashtabula, Ohio.
Oh my God, that's like an hour from us.
Abscula.
We call it trash to
We call it trash to be.
Yeah. More than likely.
Rob, thank you for your knowledge. Thanks for sharing.
Dude, you are awesome.
All
awesome.
Right, let's call it out.
Rob, thank you.
See you soon.
Cheers. It's a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you again for your service.
All right.
Cheers. Thank you.
Until the next time. I am your host, Big G.
Karen Ruby.
Urban Bob.
Drew Estate Tom. Thank you, Rob.
Whiskey Rob.
There you go, Rob. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, cheers. Take care. Have a good one.